Lieutenant Commander Jack Samuel stood rigid on the deck of the USS Theodore Roosevelt, his eyes fixed on the diminishing silhouette of Chicago's skyline. The ship was pulling away from the port, carrying him away from the life he cherished. At 42, Jack was the epitome of the American dream, a decorated naval officer with a loving family. His wife, Stella, had kissed him goodbye that morning, her dark skin radiant against the early winter light. Their two sons, Marcus, age 10, with an infectious enthusiasm for life, and Devin, 8, with a more reserved but thoughtful demeanor, had hugged him tightly, extracting promises of video calls. The cold wind from Lake Michigan seemed to carry with it the weight of his responsibilities both at sea and at home. Jack's last words to John Benson, his lifelong friend, echoed in his mind, "Take care of them while I'm gone," entrusting his family to a man he considered a brother. John Benson, now 43, had carved out a successful career as a realtor, specializing in Chicago's upscale Gold Coast properties. His life was a testament to hard work and ambition from their shared Southside roots. John lived close by, only 10 minutes from Jack's family, which allowed him to be an integral part of their lives. He was there for Stella when Jack was away, fixing household issues, coaching the boys in baseball, and joining them for what was supposed to be familial Sunday dinners. These gatherings were the unspoken glue of their friendship, but beneath the surface they harbored a secret that would eventually fracture the bonds they cherished. To the outside world, John was the perfect friend and uncle, but only he knew the depth of his involvement with Jack's family. Stella Samuel, at 38, had turned her passion for aesthetics into a flourishing interior design business. She was known for her ability to transform mundane spaces into breathtaking showcases of art and comfort. Currently, she was in a Lincoln Park mansion, draping silk curtains with meticulous care as the neurosurgeon's wife discussed color schemes. Stella's talent had earned her a reputation among Chicago's elite, but her phone's buzz interrupted her focus. A text from John read, "Miss you. Last night was amazing." With a swift motion, she deleted it, her heart racing with the realization of their indiscretion. She had been married to Jack for 12 years, a union she once thought unbreakable. Now she found herself entangled in a web of emotions she never anticipated. What started as innocent help, movie nights with the kids, fixing a kitchen cabinet, evolved into something more during Jack's deployments. The quiet moments after the boys were asleep, under the guise of shared wine and conversation, turned into confessions of feelings long suppressed. Then, on a rainy September night in 2019, after 4 long months of Jack's absence, John came over to fix a leak. The situation escalated, and they found themselves in an embrace, crossing a line they both knew was wrong. "This is wrong," Stella whispered in the dim light, her voice a mix of desire and guilt. "I've loved you for years," John confessed, his words a mix of relief and agony. From that moment, their lives were irrevocably changed, their affair deepening with each secret meeting. Stella Samuel lived each day with a shadow of guilt hanging over her. Every morning she woke up with the weight of her secret affair with John Benson pressing on her conscience. Her once vibrant and joyful life now felt like a performance, where she had to keep up appearances for Jack, her husband, and for the community that admired her for her success in interior design. The guilt was not just about the betrayal of her marital vows, but also about the deception she was perpetuating in her own home, where every smile and every affectionate gesture towards Jack was loaded with falsehood. He cherished every moment with Marcus and Devin, knowing these were times he might never openly claim as a father. Yet the knowledge that he was living a double life, betraying his best friend, was a constant reminder of the moral abyss he had stepped into. His love for Stella was now intertwined with this secret, making every interaction with her a mix of affection and pain. Jack Samuel, from his naval station, began to sense something was off. His video calls home, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt like interrogations. He noticed Stella's responses were more scripted, her smiles less reaching her eyes. One call in particular sent a chill down his spine when Devon innocently mentioned, "Uncle John taught me how to throw a curveball just like his." Jack's mind raced. John had never played baseball in high school or college. He was a basketball player. Later that night, Jack, driven by newfound suspicion, went through every social media photo Stella had posted. There, in plain sight, was John in every significant family moment, his presence almost too close, his hand often on Stella's shoulder or back, a gesture that now seemed too intimate. Jack's heart sank as he pieced together the puzzle of his life, realizing that these weren't just friendly touches but signs of something deeper. His questions during calls became more probing, less about daily life and more about the specifics of John's involvement. movement. Jack's trust, once as solid as his military resolve, was now riddled with cracks, each photo, each comment from his sons, widening the divide between what he believed and the reality he was beginning to uncover. The discovery came in layers, each more damning than the last. Jack's first lead was through Stella's credit card statements. He found charges from hotels, not just one or two, but from 4 different occasions in the last month alone. These weren't just any hotels, they were upscale, the kind one might choose for a clandestine meeting. A neighbor's offhand comment about seeing John leave early one morning sparked a memory of Stella's excuse about a plumbing emergency, which now seemed absurdly thin. When Jack called Stella, confronting her about the charges, her explanation of client meetings at hotels to discuss decor fell flat. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken admissions. Jack, with his military background, knew how to read between the lines, and the absence of sound was as telling as any confession. That night, Jack accessed the medical records he had requested months ago under the guise of needing them for military purposes. The blood types, the genetic markers, they all pointed to a truth he was reluctant to accept but could no longer deny. His family, the cornerstone of his life, was built on a lie. Jack, now ensconced in the quiet isolation of his naval quarters, had the medical records spread before him. Each document was a piece of a puzzle that, when connected, painted a picture of betrayal. The blood types didn't match what should have been inherited from him, and the genetic markers were a clear sign that Marcus and Devon might not be his biological children. This revelation was like a physical blow. He felt the room spin, his breath catching in his throat, but his military training kicked in, transforming shock into strategy. He had already sent off the DNA from the boys' toothbrushes for testing, a move he had made in secret, driven by this growing suspicion. The results were pending, but he knew they would likely confirm what he already feared. Meanwhile, he continued to gather more evidence. He hacked into Stella's email looking for signs of her affair and checked their shared bank accounts for any unusual transactions. Simultaneously, John Benson received the anonymous email that would shake his carefully constructed life. It was simple, yet chilling. "I know about you and Stella. I know about the boys. Back off or Jack finds out everything." His heart raced. He knew this could be the end of everything he had built with Stella. He immediately called her, panic evident in his voice. "Someone knows. We need to end this now." This forced both of them into a state of heightened alertness, each moment now fraught with the fear of discovery. They had to start covering their tracks, deleting messages, being more cautious. Yet the damage was already done. The truth, once hidden, was now clawing its way to the surface. Barbara Wilson, Jack's cousin, had always been perceptive. She had seen the way John lingered around Stella, the private glances that seemed too intimate for mere friendship. When she overheard John and Stella on the phone, discussing their next meeting with a mix of excitement and caution, she knew she had to act. Her call to Jack was filled with a mix of concern and urgency. "Jack, you need to come home. I think there's something you should know." Jack's reaction was immediate. He requested emergency leave, his voice steady but his eyes haunted. His commanding officer, sensing the gravity of the situation, approved without hesitation. On the flight back, Jack was a man with a mission. He reviewed everything: the credit card statements showing hotel visits, phone records revealing late-night calls, the medical files that didn't add up, and the anticipated DNA results. Each piece of evidence was a step closer to a confrontation he had been dreading and now felt inevitable. After landing at O'Hare International Airport, Jack Samuel did not immediately seek the comfort of his home or the embrace of his sons. Instead, his steps were purposeful as he drove to a hardware store on 87th Street, a place where he was just another customer among many. His purchases were ordinary to the uninitiated eye: rope, duct tape, plastic sheeting, and new shovels. To the clerk, Jack offered a smile and a brief comment about yard work, his tone convincingly casual, but inside Jack was anything but calm. He checked into a nondescript motel on the city's outskirts where he could plan without interruption. In his room, he spread out a mosaic of betrayal on the bed: credit card statements, phone records, medical files, and the results of the DNA tests he'd secretly ordered. Each document was a testament to the life he thought he knew, now revealed as a carefully crafted lie. His military background took over, turning his emotional turmoil into a strategic operation. He planned meticulously, considering every detail from how he'd dispose of the bodies to how he'd framed their disappearance as an escape. He reviewed maps of the lake house area, checking weather forecasts for optimal digging conditions. Every action was calculated to ensure he left no trace, no clue that would lead back to him. The Victorian home in Hyde Park was awash with color and cheer as Stella Samuel prepared for what she believed would be a joyous reunion. Friends and neighbors filled the space, laughter and conversation creating a facade of normalcy. Stella had meticulously arranged the decorations, her interior design skills on full display. She had planned this down to the last detail, including inviting John Benson, who, despite the turmoil of their secret, agreed to keep up appearances. Marcus and Devon, with the innocence of youth, were caught up in the excitement, crafting welcome signs with crayons and markers. "When's Daddy coming?" Marcus asked, eyes bright with anticipation. "Tomorrow morning, baby. He wants to surprise you at breakfast," Stella answered, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she checked her phone for any sign of Jack. Unknown to them, Jack was already close by, parked down the street, his eyes on the house through binoculars. He watched John arrive, his heart sinking as he saw the familiarity of their greeting, confirming his worst fears. The party was a painful reminder of the life he thought he had, now a mockery in the face of betrayal. He decided that this would be the last time he played the part of the happy husband and father. Jack suggested a getaway to the lake house, a place of fond memories now set to become a scene of horror. The idea was met with enthusiasm. It was a perfect excuse to get away from the city, to celebrate his return. The boys would stay with Stella's mother, providing the seclusion Jack needed for his plan. As they drove towards Michigan, Jack followed in his car, his trunk filled with the tools of his vengeance. The drive was under the cover of night, the stars a stark contrast to the darkness of his intentions. The lake house appeared around 9 p.m., dark and isolated against the backdrop of Lake Michigan. The water's gentle lapping was peaceful, a deceptive calm before the storm. The basement of the lake house was a cold, unwelcoming space, its concrete walls echoing with the sound of dripping water, a stark contrast to the warmth upstairs where they had shared so many family moments. Stella and John found themselves bound to heavy wooden chairs, the ropes biting into their wrists and ankles. The air was thick with the musty smell of earth and the sharp tang of fear. Jack sat across from them, his uniform now replaced with dark, functional clothing, his demeanor that of a man who had shed his emotional veneer for cold, hard strategy. Before him, on a makeshift table, were the documents and items that would condemn them. Medical records, DNA test results, photographs from happier times, now evidence of betrayal. 12 years, Jack began, his voice devoid of the warmth it once held. 12 years I served my country, protected my family, and trusted my best friend. His words cut through the silence, each one heavy with the weight of his disillusionment. Stella, her eyes wide with panic, started to speak, her voice shaky. "Jack, please, we can explain." But Jack interrupted, holding up the DNA results. "DNA doesn't lie. Medical records don't lie." "But you did, both of you." John, his usual confidence replaced by desperation, struggled against his bindings. "Jack, the boys, they need their mother, their father too." His plea was met with a hollow laugh from Jack. "Their father? You mean their real father?" The confrontation was not driven by rage, but by a chilling determination. Jack explained how he watched from the shadows during his supposed deployment, seeing them play the happy family. His words were methodical, each detail laid out not with passion but with the precision of someone who had spent months, if not years, planning this moment. Jack's execution of his plan was a grim display of military precision, where every detail was calculated to mislead and confuse. The basement of the lake house was his theater of operations, the concrete walls mute witnesses to his betrayal and revenge. He had laid out his evidence like pieces on a chessboard, each move premeditated. He had spent months forging a suicide note in Stella's handwriting, practicing to get the nuances of her script just right. This note, along with a series of emails he had sent from John's account, suggested a mutual decision to flee their lives, leaving behind everything for a new start. The emails were cunningly crafted, discussing their escape and plans, setting up a narrative of lovers running away together. The cash withdrawals he had orchestrated were from their joint accounts, timed to look like preparations for a new life. He had thought of everything, the absence of phones, the cars left behind, the notes suggesting distress or desperation. With Stella and John bound, Jack explained his actions with an eerie calm. "You turned my life into a lie," he said, his voice steady as he recounted how he had watched them during his supposed deployments. He made them watch as he dug the grave, the soft rain-soaked earth making his task easier. Each shovel of dirt was a symbol of the betrayal he had endured. He forced them to kneel at the grave's edge, the plastic sheeting beneath them a final cruel mockery of the life they had shared. The morning after the grim events at the lake house, the Chicago Tribune dominated newsstands with a headline that would capture the city's attention for months: "Prominent realtor and interior designer missing from Lake Michigan retreat." The story was ripe with intrigue, the disappearance of two well-known figures from Chicago's social scene. In a scenario that screamed of scandal or foul play, Detective Marcus Washington was assigned the case, his reputation for solving complex cases preceding him. When he interviewed Jack Samuel, he found a man who appeared to be the epitome of grief and concern. Jack handed over documents with a rehearsed ease, emails discussing escape, business cards from John's real estate dealings, and bank statements showing recent cash withdrawals. Yet, Washington's instincts, honed over years in the force, told him this narrative was too tidy, too perfectly constructed. Jack's home was under siege by media, friends, and neighbors, all offering support or seeking answers. Marcus and Devin, unaware of the full extent of the tragedy, clung to their father, seeking comfort in his presence, though Jack's hugs were more about maintaining appearances than affection. Barbara Wilson, Jack's cousin, was there, her face a mask of concern, unaware of the pivotal role her suspicions had played in this unfolding drama. The public was captivated, but Washington's skepticism grew. The scene at the lake house, with cars and personal items left behind, suggested something far more sinister than a lover's escape. Washington's investigation was relentless. He pored over financial statements, finding no evidence of the home renovations Jack claimed the withdrawn money was for. No permits were filed, no contractors had been paid. It was as if the money had vanished into thin air. His suspicions led him back to the lake house, where he ordered a ground-penetrating radar survey. The lake house, once a place of family memories, now held secrets beneath its floors. Meanwhile, Jack continued his life, the image of a man coping with loss, attending work at the naval base, coaching baseball, attending parent-teacher conferences. But at night, alone, he drank, staring at photos that no longer brought joy, but pain. Washington interviewed acquaintances, the boys' baseball coach, who offhandedly mentioned how Marcus and Devin moved and played just like John, igniting a new line of inquiry into paternity. Back at the precinct, Washington and his partner, Detective Sarah Chen, dissected every piece of evidence. They found Jack's motel stay, his hardware store purchases, and his military records, which revealed specialized training in covert operations, suggesting a man capable of meticulous planning. The discovery at the lake house was like pulling a thread that would unravel Jack Samuel's carefully constructed facade. The ground-penetrating radar cutting through the autumn earth revealed what Jack had tried to bury beneath memory and soil. Two bodies wrapped in plastic and bound with rope were unearthed near the old oak tree, a place that had once held laughter and now bore the weight of death. Detective Marcus Washington, upon receiving the news, felt a grim satisfaction mixed with a heavy heart. The case, which had seemed too neatly tied up with Jack's story of a lover's escape, now showed its true colors. DNA results confirmed what Jack had discovered and acted upon. John was the biological father of Marcus and Devin, not Jack. This revelation was the key that unlocked the case. The arrest of Jack was as public as it was dramatic. It happened at Devin's basketball game, under the bright lights of the court, where innocence and betrayal collided. Devin's voice calling out, "Dad, what's happening?" echoed with the confusion of youth faced with incomprehensible adult actions. The media captured every moment, turning a family tragedy into a public spectacle. In the interrogation room, Jack's confession was delivered with the same cold precision he had shown in his planning. He detailed how Marcus had begun to piece together the truth from the photos Jack was burning, a sign that his secret would not remain hidden for long. This confession was not one of guilt or sorrow, but of a mission completed, his military training evident in his detachment. Washington realized this wasn't about rage, but about control, about orchestrating an end where he held all the power. Jack Samuel's trial was a media event, a narrative that captured the nation's attention, turning the courtroom into a stage for one of Chicago's most shocking crimes. Jack, now in his Navy uniform, took the stand, his confession chilling the room to silence. He spoke not with remorse, but with a clinical recounting of discovery, planning, and execution. The prosecution, led by Assistant State's Attorney Regina Martinez, laid out a damning case. She presented evidence that painted a picture of premeditation. Soil from Jack's car matched the gravesite, surveillance footage from the hardware store showed his purchases, cell phone records placed him at the lake house when Stella and John disappeared. But the most compelling piece was Jack's diary, found hidden in his Navy footlocker, which chronicled his suspicions, his investigation, and his cold, calculated plans. Jack described how each memory with his sons was now tainted by betrayal, how he had watched from the shadows during what he thought were his deployments. His words were like the dirt he had shoveled, each one a testament to the life he believed had been stolen from him. The jury, after hearing about the methodical nature of the crime, the lack of passion but presence of calculation, convicted Jack on all counts. Judge Patricia Williams, in her sentencing, spoke with gravity. "You've demonstrated a level of cruelty and calculation rarely seen. You took lives, destroyed a family, and left scars on innocent children." Jack was sentenced to life without parole, a life now defined by the consequences of his actions. Years after the trial, Marcus and Devon, living with their grandmother, turned their pain into a force for good. They established the Samuel Benson Foundation, dedicated to supporting children who had experienced similar tragedies or lived through domestic violence. The foundation became a testament to resilience, focusing not just on memory, but on healing. The lake house, once a scene of horror, was demolished, replaced by a memorial garden where purple irises, Stella's favorite, bloomed each spring, symbolizing rebirth from tragedy. Jack died in prison, his letters to his sons unread, a final act of rejection by Marcus and Devon, who chose to move forward without his shadow. Marcus, now studying psychology at university, used his knowledge to help others navigate their traumas. He understood the complexities of human behavior, the depth of betrayal, and the power of recovery. Devon, with his natural talent for baseball, played with a skill that honored both his fathers, wearing John's number on his jersey, a silent tribute to the life they could have had. Their story became a case study, taught in schools and universities, a narrative of betrayal, revenge, and the human capacity for healing. The foundation's motto, "Truth buried deep grows toward the light," became a beacon of hope, showing that even from the darkest soil, new beginnings can flourish. As we bring this story to a close, I invite you to join our community. If this tale of human complexity and the consequences of our choices has touched you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that explore the depths of human emotion and morality. Now, I want to engage you with a question. What if Jack had opted for confrontation over revenge? Imagine if, upon discovering the affair, he had chosen to talk to Stella and John, to seek understanding or even forgiveness. How might the narrative have changed? Would it have led to a different outcome, where healing could have been possible, or was the path of revenge inevitable once the trust was broken? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss the possibilities of redemption versus the finality of revenge, and what this story teaches us about the choices we make in the face of betrayal. Remember, every narrative offers us a mirror to our own lives. What reflections do you see here?